October 25, 1944. A lone American destroyer charges the most powerful naval force ever assembled. For 77 years, its fate was a complete mystery, a final, defiant act lost to the sea. Now, at a depth of over 21,000 feet, under pressure that would crush a submarine, its wreck has been found, nearly perfectly preserved. But this discovery does more than solve a mystery. It presents a new one. The evidence recorded in its mangled steel rewrites what we thought we knew about its final moments. How could a ship this small inflict so much damage before succumbing to such overwhelming force? And what does its silent wreckage now prove about the true nature of courage? To understand the Johnston's final stand, we must go back to its beginning. Commissioned on October 27, 1943, the USS Johnston was a Fletcher-class destroyer, one of 175 vessels designed for one purpose: to fight. The Johnston slid down the ways at the Seattle-Tacoma Shipbuilding Corporation in 1943, a 376-foot marvel of American industrial might. With 5 5-inch guns, 10 torpedo tubes, and a complement of 327 men, she was designed to be fast and lethal. But what truly set the Johnston apart was not her steel hull or her weapons. It was her commander. Lieutenant Commander Ernest E. Evans stood on the deck during the commissioning ceremony and made a promise that would define his ship's legacy. "This is going to be a fighting ship," he declared. "I intend to go in harm's way, and anyone who doesn't want to go along had better get off right now." Evans wasn't just any naval officer. Born in Oklahoma of Cherokee and Creek ancestry, he had battled prejudice his entire life. He graduated from a nearly all-white high school, joined the National Guard, transferred to the Navy, and earned an appointment to the Naval Academy without political connections, graduating with the class of 1931. For Evans, the Johnston wasn't just a command. It was the culmination of a life spent overcoming impossible odds. The ship's motto, "We will stand by you," would soon be tested in the fires of combat. Within months of her commissioning, Johnston was sailing into history, providing naval gunfire support during the Marshall Islands campaign. At Kwajalein and Enewetak in February 1944, her guns pounded enemy positions, destroying pillboxes and supporting Marines ashore. By May 1944, Johnston had already proven herself a capable hunter, joining with other destroyers to sink the Japanese submarine 176 off Buka Island. Through the Solomon Islands campaign and into the Marianas, Evans built his crew into a cohesive fighting unit, exactly the team he would need for what was coming. By October 1944, the war in the Pacific had reached a crucial turning point. General Douglas MacArthur was making good on his promise to return to the Philippines, with American forces landing on Leyte Island. Supporting this massive amphibious operation was a naval force that included Escort Carrier Task Unit 77.4.3, call sign Taffy 3. Taffy 3 consisted of 6 small escort carriers, 3 destroyers including Johnston, and 4 destroyer escorts. These ships were never intended to face major surface combat. Their job was simple: protect the landing forces and provide air support. What no one expected was that they would soon face the most powerful surface fleet Japan could muster. At 06:45 hours on October 25th, radar operators aboard the ships of Taffy 3 detected a massive Japanese fleet approaching from the north. This was the Japanese Center Force, 4 battleships including the massive Yamato, with its 18.1-inch guns, 6 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, and 11 destroyers. Through a series of strategic miscalculations, the main American battle fleet had left Leyte Gulf unprotected. At 06:58 hours, the Japanese opened fire, their massive shells sending geysers of water skyward around the American ships. Rear Admiral Clifton Sprague, commanding Taffy 3, ordered his ships to make smoke and retreat eastward. But Evans had other ideas. At 0700 hours, without waiting for orders, Evans gave the command that would immortalize both him and his ship. Flank speed, full left rudder. Johnston was charging alone, directly toward a line of Japanese battleships and heavy cruisers. Evans knew his 5-inch guns were vastly outmatched by the enemy's massive 14-inch and 18-inch weapons, but he also knew that his torpedoes could hurt them if he could get close enough. For the next 20 minutes, Johnston raced through a gauntlet of enemy fire, shells splashing around her as she closed the distance. At a range of 10 miles, Japanese cruisers found their mark. An 8-inch shell landed near Johnston's bow, its red dye splashing the face of Gunnery Officer Lieutenant Robert C. Hagen. Wiping the dye from his eyes, Hagen remarked with remarkable calm, "Looks like somebody's mad at us." Despite being under fire from weapons that could obliterate her with a single hit, Johnston pressed on. In 5 furious minutes, her gunners pumped 200 rounds at the nearest cruiser, the Kumano, scoring multiple hits. Then, Evans gave the order. "Fire torpedoes!" Johnston launched a full spread of 10 torpedoes at the Japanese heavy cruiser line. At least one found its mark, blowing the bow off Kumano and forcing her to withdraw from battle. Having delivered this blow, Johnston turned away behind a smokescreen, but not before taking 3 devastating hits from 14-inch shells and several more from 6-inch weapons. The damage was catastrophic. One engine was knocked out. The bridge was heavily damaged, and Evans himself was seriously wounded, losing 2 fingers and suffering shrapnel wounds across his body. But Johnston was still in the fight. By this time, inspired by Johnston's example, the other destroyers and destroyer escorts of Taffy 3 had joined the charge. USS Howell and USS Samuel B. Roberts were pressing their own attacks against the Japanese fleet. After makeshift repairs, Johnston rejoined the battle. With no torpedoes left, she engaged Japanese destroyers with her remaining guns. When Evans noticed that Japanese ships were targeting the escort carrier Gambier Bay, he gave an order that epitomized his selfless courage. "Commence firing on that cruiser, draw her fire on us and away from Gambier Bay." For 2.5 hours, Johnston fought against overwhelming odds, maneuvering between the Japanese ships and the American carriers she was protecting. Her guns blazed continuously, scoring hit after hit on enemy vessels many times her size. By 9:30 hours, Johnston was a floating wreck. Her bridge had been destroyed, most of her guns were disabled, and she was dead in the water. Japanese destroyers surrounded her, pouring fire into the crippled American ship from point-blank range. At 9:45 hours, Evans gave his final order: "Abandon ship." As Johnston slipped beneath the waves at approximately 10:10 hours, Japanese ship commanders, impressed by the destroyer's incredible courage, were seen saluting from their bridges. Of the 327 men aboard, only 141 would survive. Evans himself was last seen organizing life rafts before disappearing beneath the waves. In the official after-action reports, Johnston's exact sinking location remained approximate. For families of the 186 sailors lost that day, there would be no graves to visit, no final resting place to mourn. The Philippine Sea had swallowed the evidence of their sacrifice, and the Johnston became a ghost ship, remembered in naval history but lost to human eyes. What no one fully appreciated at the time was just how deep Johnston had sunk. The battle had taken place near the Philippine Trench, one of the deepest parts of the world's oceans. As technology advanced through the decades, multiple attempts were made to locate the wreck, but all failed. The Johnston had vanished into what oceanographers call the Hadal Zone, named for Hades, the Greek god of the underworld. In this lightless realm, where pressure exceeds 4.5 tons per square inch, temperatures hover around freezing, and only the strangest deep-sea creatures can survive, Johnston rested in silence. The years turned to decades, and the living memory of that October morning began to fade. Fast forward to October 2019. The research vessel Petrel, funded by the late Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen through Vulcan Incorporated, was systematically mapping the seafloor near the site of the battle off Samar. Using advanced sonar technology, the team detected what appeared to be the wreckage of a Fletcher-class destroyer at a staggering depth of more than 20,000 feet, making it the deepest shipwreck ever discovered at that time. But there was a problem. The wreckage they found consisted only of scattered debris, a deck gun, a propeller shaft, and miscellaneous pieces. More concerning, the wreck was positioned on the edge of an undersea cliff, with parts of it apparently tumbling deeper into the abyss. The remotely operated vehicle the Petrel team was using had reached its depth limit. They could not go deeper to confirm the ship's identity. Was it Johnston or her sister ship Hoel, also lost in the same battle? The Naval History and Heritage Command assessed the wreck as probably Johnston based on location, but without seeing the hull number, absolute confirmation was impossible. The mystery persisted until March 2021, when explorer Victor Vescovo, a retired U.S. Navy commander, arrived with a revolutionary deep submergence vehicle called Limiting Factor. Unlike previous vessels, Limiting Factor had no operating depth limitation, and it had already reached the deepest points in all 5 of the world's oceans. Over the course of several dives, Vescovo and his team located Johnston's bow section deeper down the undersea cliff at the staggering depth of 21,180 feet, roughly 4 miles beneath the surface. There, preserved in the crushing darkness, they found the evidence they sought. The hull number 557 still clearly visible in bright white paint on the ship's bow. Vescovo later recalled that he turned to his co-pilot and shouted, "Get a picture! Get a picture!" After 77 years, Johnston had finally been found. What the explorers discovered in the Hadal darkness was astonishing. Despite the crushing depth, much of Johnston remained remarkably intact. The forward 2/3 of the hull still sat upright, with her forward 5-inch guns and rangefinder trained to starboard, still pointing toward the enemy ships she had faced in her final moments. Naval historian Park Stevenson created a 3-dimensional model of the wreck, revealing the full extent of the damage Johnston had sustained. Shell holes from numerous destroyers and Japanese light cruisers riddled her sides. The bridge, though damaged by a 6.1-inch shell from the battleship Yamato's secondary battery, remained recognizable. Most telling, the rear third of the ship was completely missing, sheared away where she had been struck by an 18.1-inch shell from the battleship Yamato, the largest naval gun ever deployed. The wreckage confirmed what survivor accounts had only partially revealed. Johnston had fought to her last breath. Her guns remained trained on enemy positions, ready to fire even as the ship went down. The physical evidence matched perfectly with the historical record of a small ship that had charged into battle against overwhelming odds. But the wreck revealed something more, something the history books had not fully captured. Johnston had not just fought, she had fought smart. The torpedo hits that crippled the heavy cruiser Kumano, the accurate gunnery that damaged multiple Japanese vessels, and the tactical maneuvering that had drawn fire away from the vulnerable carriers, all were preserved in the positioning of her wreckage. The evidence from the deep rewrote what naval historians thought they knew about Johnston's final moments. She had not just been overwhelmed by superior firepower, she had fought with precision and tactical brilliance until her last breath. The discovery of USS Johnston provides more than answers. It provides proof. Proof that courage is not measured by the size of your ship, but by the size of your resolve. The actions of Evans and his crew that day helped turn the tide of the battle off Samar. Confounded by the ferocity of the American resistance and suffering unexpected losses, the Japanese commander, Vice Admiral Takeo Kurita, ultimately decided to withdraw his force, saving the vulnerable landing operations at Leyte Gulf and possibly changing the course of the Pacific War. For his actions, Commander Ernest Evans was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, the first Native American in the United States Navy to receive this highest military decoration and one of only 2 destroyer captains in World War II to earn this distinction. Johnston herself received the Presidential Unit Citation, the highest award that can be given to a ship. After photographing the wreck, Vescovo and his team were careful to leave it undisturbed. They had a strict look, don't touch policy, recognizing that the site is both a historical treasure and a war grave. Before departing, they brought their surface vessel to a stop above the wreck site, sounded the ship's whistle, and laid a wreath in honor of the 186 sailors who perished there. Today, the USS Johnston stands as the deepest known shipwreck in the world, a silent guardian in the crushing darkness of the Hadal Zone. 4 miles beneath the surface, her guns still pointed at the enemy, Johnston continues to tell the story of what courage truly looks like. As naval historian Samuel Eliot Morrison wrote, "In no engagement in its entire history has the United States Navy shown more gallantry, guts, and gumption than in the 2 morning hours between 7:30 and 9:30 off Samar." If you've been moved by the incredible story of the USS Johnston and her brave crew, help us keep naval history alive. Ocean Attacks brings you the most remarkable stories from beneath the waves. Subscribe. Now dive into more incredible discoveries from the depths. And if you know a veteran, take a moment to thank them for their service. Courage, like that of the USS Johnston's crew, deserves to be remembered.